Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Canadian Football Central CFL content for the fans, by the fans. Now, the first thing you may notice, I am not home. I'm actually recording this at my auntie's. I'm on the road, so my apologies for the microphone quality. I don't have my mic with me, so it's just my laptop picking up my voice. So I hope it will work for today for the preview and then the review that will be coming out later today. But I'm recording this, from Thunder Bay, Ontario, and we're going to be recording this actually 8 o'clock, or I guess it doesn't really matter for the review, but we'll specify it a bit more in the preview. We had an interesting week of football, and a week of football that Rick can finally smile about, that is. But we will get to that game. We will start with the first game of the week, which was the Edmonton-Ottawa game. Ottawa wins by a score of 20-14. And quite possibly one of the most boring games of football I have ever watched. And, man, I'm trying
Keep in mind, both me and Carter did live stream this game, too.
Oh, yeah, no, you can check out 2 hours of boring guys on demand. It is posted. It's funny, because this game... It overlaps slightly with the Bomber game, with the Bombers Riders game. And so it got to the point where there was like 2 minutes left and pretty much the game was called and the game seemed like it was done. And so we're like, screw this. We're just switching over to the next game. And that's what we did. But man, this game was tough to watch. And it was a little bit interesting because before I get into the game itself, I want to a little bit address McLeod Bethel-Thompson's comments after the game to the media, basically regarding that...
The fourth time?
And basically that this was ridiculous about how... It was ridiculous how the CFL would put these games 4 days apart with both the same teams. Now, I guess maybe the CFL was thinking that because both teams are going to be both teams will be tired equally, so therefore it's fair... or whatever. An important thing to mention that this is not unique to the CFL. Other leagues will have these happen. The NFL has this happen. The UFL has had this happen. I'm sure many other leagues. As someone who used to play football, it is very difficult to do two in a week. Because football just beats the hell out of you, and you need a week really to fully recover to 100%. And sometimes not even 100% at that point. So I definitely think his comments are valid, but I also think that, we have a little bit of, is confirmation bias the term? I don't know if it is.
The only problem...
I guess hindsight's 2020, he's saying this after guys did get injured. Is it possible that is the reason to their injury? Maybe, but I mean, it doesn't help. I'll give him that, but...
The only problem that I have with this is the two things.
Yep.
A, other teams are going to be going through the same thing this year.
Yep.
Two, if other players had a problem with it, others would be speaking out. It's only him that has the problem.
Yeah, or at least either Bethel Thompson is the only one having this issue, or others are having this issue, but it's not as much of an inconvenience to them to the point of speaking out. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of the situation here with Bethel Thompson. And so it's funny because I see both sides of it here, and how with Bethel Thompson, obviously, again, this is nothing unique to the CFL. So it's not like this is just outrageous and unheard of. It's just not. But I do, it is an argument, although I don't know the perfect solution to it, as if you then move this game further into the weekend and bring one of those games earlier, when you start getting into that kind of shuffling around, typically you'll end up with actually the same issue again, just somewhere else. And so I would probably take a bet that the league thought because both teams were going to be tired going into this game, that at least if there's going to be teams that are going to have the little amount of rest, at least have them play each other, so that way the stakes are fair.
Here's my thought of this is.
Yep.
Suck it up, Buttercup. You came up here. You're a professional. You signed with the team before the schedule was even out, so you knew that it was coming. So, in my defense, suck it up, Buttercup.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing in the sense of from an injury perspective, I get it. Again, I do think hindsight's like 2020 here in the sense of that if I'll put it this way, if no one gets injured, does Bethel Thompson say anything? Probably not. That would be my guess here. And so it almost seems like he's maybe using that injury thing to kind of make his point across. I'm not saying it's not valid. I'm just saying is that that's just an important thing to take into account. But I expect Bethel Thompson to most likely be fined. I know Bethel Thompson expects to most likely be fined. And I expect that there's going to be no change. Unless there was more backlash coming out, which there has not been, and if there was, it would have already happened at this point. We're recording this on Tuesday. So it is what it is. But talking about the game itself, man, oh my
Eugene
goodness.
Lewis was a sighting.
We got a rushing touchdown in the first quarter, and then we got field goal kicks and safeties and we didn't even get a safety. We got singles and field goals for the rest of this game. It was like, man, like you have no idea how much money I would have paid to just start watching paint dry instead of this game.
It's funny because we both made that comment during stream.
Yeah, no, it's funny. It was one of those things where during the stream, like, it's like if you ever are trying to sleep at night, and let's just say you don't have melatonin, you could turn on our live stream that we have saved of this game, and I bet you it would really help get you to sleep because it was putting us to sleep. I can tell you that. They threw in Trey Ford a little bit here because again, you have to remember this is the first game without Chris Jones at the helm, and so I basically said in the preview that normally it takes teams more than one game to adjust to a coach. Now, I had some people say I was wrong. However, I'm going to say this now. Pretty sure I was right. Elks lose 20-14 to Ottawa, which, remember, Ottawa is really not that good. It's just they've had some moments where they've spurred out. And this was not one of those games. You know, it would be one thing if they played against Edmonton and we saw the best version of the Ottawa Redblacks. But I really don't think we did. Because if we look at Drew Brown, 22 for 33, he's 66% here. No touchdowns, 2 picks, and pretty vital picks too, where he really had a chance to score, but that completely screwed it up. Not a single receiver over 70 yards on Ottawa. Armstead would get 53 yards, but that's on 12 carries, so an average of 4.4, so not bad. 1 touchdown for him. The only touchdown of... Was that the only touchdown of this game total? I know it was... Yeah, it was the only touchdown. It was the only touchdown of this game. And this was probably one of Drew Brown's worst games. I mean, he 257, not a single touchdown pass, 2 picks. And it was not... one of those picks, it was like, I don't even know what he's doing. And so this, in my opinion, was not even close to the best game the Red Blacks have played. And the Red Blacks won this game. Keep that in mind. I'm just saying is that those comments that we have repeated multiple times by Milt Stegall have been ringing true more and more and more. And it's that in Edmonton, they're not improving. They're just finding more ways to lose. And so I don't know what to say about this Elk squad other than they got to figure it out. They got to figure out this coach's new vision, and it's going to be a little bit difficult because he's stuck with all the stuff that Chris Jones is very much keen on, and some of it he'll be able to change, and some of it, unfortunately, they won't be able to change probably till next season.
The one thing that I will mention is that Edmonton's defense did have 4 sacks, 2 interceptions, and 1 fumble recovery.
Yep.
But Carter, let's address the elephant in the room.
They were able to do
Boris
that.
Beatty.
Oh my
for
goodness.
7.
Yeah, Boris Beatty was atrocious. This was bad. This was bad. And you know what? I'm not even going to pin the whole loss on Boris Beatty, which I know some people are, and fair enough, I get it. He missed 3 kicks, and you would have won the game with that. And
That
it's
would have
not
tied
like
the
they were
game.
that crazy of kicks that he was missing. If this was stuff that Boris Beatty has hit before and hit in Stroves. But I mean, this Edmonton Elks, it's like, at the end of the day, I am a true believer of the fact that if you do not score a touchdown, I don't care how many points you kick, you don't deserve to win. If you can't score a touchdown, one touchdown, you don't deserve to win the football game. And that's the problem here, is that Edmonton defensively actually played not bad. Actually, this is probably one of their better games defensively, but the offense was non-existent. It didn't matter whether it was Trey Ford or Bethel Thompson in there. And they give Trey Ford a little bit of an opportunity, but then they throw Bethel Thompson back in there. And I don't mind this idea of using both quarterbacks. Now, I will say you can't do it quite the way that Edmonton would, which was just randomly switch them here and there, as quarterbacks rely very much on getting into a rhythm, and not allowing them to establish any rhythm whatsoever is not great. But I actually think using these two quarterbacks in a similar way to Winnipeg has a few times, where you'd actually have both quarterbacks on the field at the same time. You'd have Bethel Thompson as at QB, and then you would have Trey Ford as almost like a running back. I don't know, maybe play like a flea flicker with him or something. Just something different for this offense, because they just I think there are ways to get Trey Ford involved, and I know that Trey Ford is very frustrated with the situation. But at the end of the day, he's got to make the most of the field time that he's able to get, and unfortunately, he just was not able to get it done in this game. But overall, I think that's pretty much all we got on this game, unless you got anything, Rick.
So I just want to point out one thing. So the 3 that he missed was a 42, a 43, and a 45.
Okay, so they were longer, but like all 3 of them, like I don't know. I've seen Boris Beatty.
I mean, the longest that he hit was 42.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where, I mean, Boris Beatty, we're talking about like a kicker who's, for a while has been pretty good in the CFL. Like, this is not like this is a amateur rookie kicker in the CFL. But man, this was a rough night for Boris Beatty and a rough night for the Edmonton Elks offense. And so the Red Blacks would win by a score of 20-14. And so then later that night, we would get to see my depression being broadcast live to all you wonderful people at home. That was the Saskatchewan Roughriders defeating the Winnipeg Blue Bombers by a score of 19-9. Oh man!
And we also get to see Carter pull his brother's pissed off fiasco later on in the game. That was honestly priceless.
Zach Caleros threw that. So there was two ones. There was Zach Caleros throwing the pick. I think the one I lost my mind on was Dembski fumbled. This has got to be at least his 3rd ball of the year. And I understand that Thurman makes a good defensive play here, and he punches it out. However, as a receiver, it's your job to be aware of your surroundings. If you think that ball is at risk, go down, take the yards. Especially at this point, because he's had, how many yards did he have at least? At least 30. It was more than that, probably. And
it was 30.
It was 30? Okay. It was a big gain for Nick Dembski, and this happening was just terrible. Now, I want to discuss a little bit of the elephant in the room. So Zach Caleros makes a big mistake on his interception. However, I'm not going to lie. I've had time to sit with this game and think about it and rewatch the highlights. I'm not fully convinced that Zach Caleros is washed, and I'll tell you why. The amount of times that Zach Caleros has thrown it straight to the receiver's hands and they've just dropped it is insane. There are so many examples of plays where receivers are not running their routes properly and they're not getting themselves open, and Zach Caleros is trying to do what he can. Now, again, I think when he threw that pick, this is Zach Caleros trying to make something out of nothing, and it backfires badly. And Dembski's out of position. and he's in. It's funny. He's sort of in double coverage. He's sort of not. He's sort of in single coverage, but you have a guy coming in, so it kind of becomes double coverage. Now, the thing here is that, so with that, like, the issue that I see here is that Dembski, again, this is another situation of him just not really getting open. And to be fair, Zach Collaros is a quarterback who, as much as I get frustrated about some quarterbacks trying to make something out of nothing, that's kind of a talent that Zach Collaros has had in the past, in the sense of, I mean, how many times in the past few years during the Bombers, I guess, reign of terror, if you want to call it that, has Zach Collaros made something out of nothing and just made these brilliant plays that are just like out of this world, where he really had no business making that throw and getting that connection and being able to keep the offense going, but he's being able to get it done. And so, um, it's frustrating to see that not happening. The Bombers desperately need guys like Dalton Schoen and Kenny Lawler back into the lineup. Again, I know there was a little bit of an issue with the connection there, and the connection between between Collaros and those receivers earlier on. But I really think if they can get those guys back into the lineup and they can really get this going again, because Zach Collaros did have a slow start, but I think Zach Collaros is starting to pick up. But I think his receivers are still a little bit behind him. Um, Ontario Wilson, unfortunately, was not able really to follow up his last night. Because, I mean, like, actually, a great example of receivers not being able to get open. Leading receiver for the Bombers, Brady Oliveira, with 9 receptions for 80 yards. 100%, or at least 90% of these passes are Brady Oliveira peeling into the flats when the receivers are running their routes. And Brady Oliveira is the backup plan. As most running plays go, that running back is going to peel out into the flats, so that way, if Collaros is not able to find anyone, give it to Oliveira and hope that he can get a lot of yards there. He had to use him so many times this game. And so, with him having to do that, it kind of shows how guys are just not able to get open. And I understand that this Saskatchewan Roughriders defense is just incredible right now, but you got to get past that, because at the end of the day, if the Bombers if they want to go anywhere, this is a team that they have to be able to beat. And they weren't able to get it done with this first one. Also, Sergio Castillo, 56-yard field goal. That is crazy. Rick, let's hear your bit.
I mean, to be honest with you, no word of a lie, I thought Shea Patterson should have done better than what he did. Like, yeah, I know he threw for 261 yards, but he only got 1 touchdown.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, overall, I thought Patterson played okay. Obviously, he played good enough for Saskatchewan to be able to get it done. Overall,
but really only got 1 touchdown.
Yeah, although I will say I did think that this was an okay defensive game here for Winnipeg, because I mean they were able to keep Saskatchewan to 19 points. This is a Saskatchewan team that has just been relentless, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But even offensively, they've been able to be pretty productive. So Willie Jefferson getting a sack, and then he was also able to knock a ball down later on. So good game for Jefferson. Evan Holm was pretty good in the back there. And overall, that was kind of. However, I will say the defensive player that is getting all the buzz is Mr. Adam Bighill, and this is for the hit at the end of the game on Shea Patterson, which I gave a little bit of a rant on my video about this. Again, I've had more time to sit with this, and I'm kind of in the middle about it, in the sense of that, is this hit completely unnecessary? Absolutely. Bighill doesn't need to do this. In terms of there's few seconds left in the game. Quarterbacks, again, they're a bit of a protected position. There's a reason why in practice they're they'll always tell you to either two-hand touch or wrap on the quarterback, never tackle him in practice, just because they're a valued position. Losing a quarterback can just change the whole game. Saskatchewan's been able to do well with Shea Patterson, but there is a difference with it. And so with this hit, does Bighill hit him when he's is this a clean hit? Absolutely, it is through and through. There's no doubt he hits him right where he should. It's within that window of time from the ball leaving his hand. Um, and I will and big credit to Shea Patterson for taking the high road and, owning up to his mistake. Because he did make a mistake in throwing this ball late. He absolutely does. I mean, even Glenn Suter admitted it, which if you're Saskatchewan and Glenn Suter is admitting you did something, then you probably did. Just because he's got a big Saskatchewan bias, similar to how Dunnigan's kind of got a big Bomber bias. I'll be fair in that regard. So overall, I see both sides of the coin. It was a bit out of character for Big Hill. Like, I know a lot of people saying they're not surprised and that they've always seen this coming, but I really haven't seen any other plays like this from Big Hill. Um, Overall, it definitely flared tensions. So it'll probably make Labor Day and the Banjo Bowl a bit of a fun watch. But I kind of felt like the Bombers were the bad guys at the end of that. So I was kind of like, I just left a bad taste in my mouth. So. Is there anything else you want to talk about? I know I've been talking
two
about
things.
Wild.
Don't forget Keon Schaefer-Baker did leave the game, and he was
Yes.
on the sidelines with a sling.
Yep, he left during the second quarter and was confirmed that he'd be out the rest of the game at halftime.
Also, to go back to your whole Adam Big Hill thing.
Yep.
So I've watched and I've listened to the different media people, coaches and everything. Patterson and May said that they don't have any problems with it. If you follow the rule book to a T, that should have been, and this is according to 3 Down Nation when I listened to their video today, if the refs, because this past week, all reffing in every games was atrocious.
Oh, yeah,
Had the refs have called it, that would have been roughing the passer, and then there would have been one more play to end the game than just that.
Yeah, although I'm going to be honest.
Called it by the book.
Like, I'm not someone who tries to. I'm someone who tries to kind of stay away from the ref complaints. What was the name? What's the name of the old guy who keeps doing these games, reffing them? I can't remember the name.
Oh, Andre Pruitt.
Andre Pruitt. Oh my goodness, okay. Man, he was. Oh my goodness! Like, again, the Bombers didn't lose because of the refs. I will say this: that reffing was incredibly tilted in Saskatchewan's favor. And this isn't me telling you this, because again, I try not to get involved with the whole ref ordeal. This is my Saskatchewan friends telling me this. And I'm gonna say it again. That pass interference penalty, the one where Saskatchewan gets a huge amount of yards, has got to be one of the weakest and most garbage pass interference penalties I have ever seen. Okay? The ball is about 6 to 8 feet above both of their heads. Both guys give up on the play because that ball is going out of bounds. It's not going to anyone. Okay? You can see them both literally slowing down during the play because this ball is gone. And I can't remember the Bomber player. Was it Holm or was it Ford? I can't remember who it was. He has his hand on the shoulder. He doesn't push him. He doesn't pull him. He has the hand on the shoulder, just eyeing up to see if that ball gets in there, so that way he can swat that out. This is common defense. Completely fine. Andre Pruitt called this pass interference, which is an absolute joke, and I really think O'Shea needs to be quicker on the gun in challenging this play. Now, Saskatchewan, credit to them, they try everything they can to get this next play off real quick, and they do. And this is kind of what allows O'Shea to not make that challenge. But my goodness, yeah, that was pathetic. It really was. There was, it's one of those things where every time I see Pruitt and he's reffing a game, it seems like he's finding every single reason to throw that flag as high as he can in the air. And it's never just throwing a flag out. It's just
now you know
why. It's like his flag has the James Bond ejector seat.
Now you know why us Ticat fans hate him.
Why? Because he thinks you're Winnipeg?
No, just like
maybe that's why maybe that's why you guys don't
no,
like
just
him.
because like every time Pruitt refs,
Yeah.
he screws up the penalties. He says offense when it's on defense. He calls the teams the wrong things, and it's just like one mess after another.
Yeah, it I will say it does. It makes the CFL look disorganized. It does. But I think that's pretty much all I got with this game. We spent a lot of time on this one. So we're going to get on into the next one, which is the Saturday game, which is the Hamilton Ticats getting their first win of the 2024 season. And it is against none other than their rivals in the Toronto Argonauts. Rick,
just a quick
floor
question.
is yours.
I know you're traveling. Did you watch any of this game or no?
So unfortunately not, because this game was
Okay.
on the Saturday. This is when we were doing the 7-hour drive to Thunder Bay on this day. So I got to see like little clips here and there, but almost nothing.
Okay. So Toronto started with the ball, but Toronto won the coin toss, but they deferred. So we started with the ball.
Yep.
Probably had the ball for like a whole minute. 2 and out, that was it.
Yep.
Toronto starts on their 30, moves up until their 37.
Yep.
They go to punt. What happens? Antoine Milinovich Leitre blocks the punt and recovers it on Toronto's 9-yard line.
Wow.
One play later, James Butler goes and runs into touchdown.
James Butler.
That's going to be the only thing that happens the first quarter. Nothing else. Touchdowns, punts, kicks, catches, the whole shebang. The second quarter gets even interesting.
Yep.
Because now we are going to skip this up to the 10-minute mark. Dukes decides to go rush because they were 2-1 or 2nd and 1.
Yep.
What does he do? He fumbles the ball. Dustin Talbert decides to pick it up, runs it back for 31 yards for the second touchdown of the game for the Ticats. At this point, it's 17-0 for the Ticats.
Yep.
Then halfway through the second, Kadeem Carey rushes for a touchdown, 17-7.
Yep.
Here's the problem that I have with the second period, and I want your take on this. Jamarian Grant decides to run, and the only way to stop him, Leitre decides to grab him by his dreadlocks and tackles him to the ground.
Yep.
My thing with this is, if you're going to have your hair that long and you can't grab the jersey, according to TSN's book, the hair is part of the uniform. And the reason why I bring this up is because there's another event later on in the game that I will mention.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what I think about this, so I'll wait till you're done and I'll give my 2 cents.
So then, that was it for that whole period. And their kicker goes to kick a field goal with no time left and completely misses it.
Yep.
The third quarter, Luther gets his second touchdown of the season.
Yep.
And Leggio kicks a field goal. Here's my problem with the whole Jamarian Grant thing is.
You're talking about the hair pull?
Yeah, so here's the other thing is.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm trying to find out where it was. And Bo Levi Mitchell decides to throw the ball to Stephen Dunbar.
Yep.
But instead of tackling him down by his legs, tackle him around the stomach, what do? They decide to pull his trousers down and tackle him, and so his pants are down by his ankles. So what are we, like, pulling people by their hairs and pulling people's pants down, like, during a game to find ways to tackle? Like, what is this, childish football? Like, you can't have one and not call the other. Like, you know what I mean? Like, okay, you can't tackle him, but you don't need to grab him by the waistband and pull. Like, you know what I mean?
And also, like I'll put it this way: did it look like it was intentional? Because it's very easy for that to not be intentional.
If you look at the footage, he literally grabs like by the top of the waistband and literally pulls it down so his underwear is showing on national TV.
Yeah,
it's almost like the same way. Like if you can't grab someone's jersey, obviously they're gonna go for the jersey and your hair, and with your hair as long as it is.
Yeah, no, you're gonna... and the general kind of consensus is that like when it comes to that sort of thing, the way that you were taught when you're learning to play football and whatnot is that you go and you try to do your proper wrap into tackle. If you can't get it, you grab anything you can. If you grab a pant, a jersey, a hair, a foot, anything. Now, there's a difference between some sort of stuff. Like, if you're going to grab the foot, don't, like, twist the guy's ankle. But, I mean, grab the foot. Because twisting the ankle, there's... If you're able to twist the ankle, you're able to grab the ankle normally. So there's no excuse for something like that. In regards to the hair pulling, fair game. Yeah, it is. Now, I'm going to say right now that should it maybe be frowned upon? Absolutely. In the sense of, is it kind of like a little bit of a low move? Yeah. However, is this something that's allowed in the game and should be continue to be allowed? Yes. And I'll tell you why. Because if we start penalizing that, wouldn't it be real convenient to just start growing your hair? Think about it. And I say this as a guy with long hair myself, as a guy who has played football and gotten my hair yanked real hard. It hurts. I get it. But that's a choice I made. I chose to play with my hair long like that, with it out, and I understood the consequences that came with that. I do, and I accepted that, and I was fine with that. If you're playing in the CFL and you have that nice long hair and whatnot, which is absolutely your right to have that, you're playing with that risk. When you go on the field, when you get your equipment on, when you go out there, you are playing and you are assuming that risk. And so, is this something we should be encouraging? No, we shouldn't be encouraging pulling guys' hair. Obviously, try to get the tackle if you can. However, if we're asking if this should be legal or if a guy should be fined for this or anything, no, this is fine. This is, again, it's not ideal, but it's part of the game, and you just have to deal with that. And that's kind of my 2 cents on that.
Okay, so
just because I actually had a lot of people asking me about this, so I actually wanted to talk about this. I'm glad you brought it up.
So the other thing was, most of the game, the good thing that the Ticats defense is that they kept Cameron Dukes in the pocket, running around in a circle, running for his life and everything. And then you speed up to probably 8 minutes to go in the game. At this point, it's 27-10.
Yep.
They decide to bring in Nick Arbuckle. Nick Arbuckle decides to get a touchdown with 4 minutes left to go.
Yep.
And we're thinking, okay, 27-7, we still have a 10-point lead. We're good to go. Then they go to punt it. Guess what happens next?
Is it Mr. Janarian Grant himself?
Mr. Janarian Grant runs from the Toronto 14-yard line and runs it back 96 yards for a touchdown to make it 27-24.
That is the Janarian Grant I remember.
But here's, I'll just run it down to the last possible play of the game, which is 20 seconds left of the game.
Yep.
Nick Arbuckle throws it. I want to say they were on the Toronto 40, throws it to the Hamilton 30.
Yep.
And Jamal Peters gets the good old pass interference. So we're thinking, oh crap, here we go again. But upon further review of the refs, they decided to call it accidental pass interference. So instead of point of contact, it's now 10 yards. Then Toronto gets called offside. So they tried to throw one pass with 14 seconds left. Incomplete.
Yep.
8 seconds left. Toronto decides that they're going to get offside. Hamilton decides to decline it. Do you know what that means?
What does that mean,
That
Greg?
the clock runs, and Toronto does not get. They get one last pass off to Coxie on the 16, and there is no time left on the clock.
And Hamilton gets their first
horrible time management. Keep in mind, Toronto did lose 4 players due to injury. 4 or 5 players due to injury for this game.
Yeah, and we'll probably, I think we'll probably get into that for the preview of the next week, just because we try to go through the injuries and whatnot. But I mean, not gonna lie, it seems like you pretty much covered this game real smooth. Is there anything else you got there?
I mean, Tim White, Steven Dunbar, James Butler went all 100 and plus yards, 1 touchdown. This is Bo's
were they all 100 plus?
No, so James Butler was the only 100 plus because he had,
and that's all-purpose yards. Yeah,
yes,
that's all-purpose yards.
Bo Levi only missed 9 catches, and he only had, this is his second less than 300 game, but he threw 1 touchdown, 1 interception,
and he threw 270. It's not like he was far off, so fair enough.
No.
And at the end of the day, you guys got the win, which is what you needed. You needed to get a win more than you needed Bo Levi Mitchell to throw a 350 again. Like, you know.
That's true.
And so
this goes to prove that our team, when we play all 3 phases of the game, that we are capable of getting a victory.
Yeah, although I will say, putting up no points in the fourth quarter isn't ideal. However, Toronto put up nothing in the first, so that was able to get it done for Hamilton. So we would then go into the Sunday game, where a little bit of a shocker here. The Calgary Stampeders with a victory over the BC Lions by a score of 25-24. I was with family this day, so unfortunately I was not able to watch a majority of this game. Jake Maier, holy crap, what a game for Jake Maier. 25 for 32. He only misses 7 passes, 307 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Jake Maier with an absolute night in this game. Huge game for Jake Maier. Very much what he needed, especially since I know so many people after the Bombers Stamps game that were calling for Jake Maier's head after that game. So Jake Maier, you couldn't have possibly timed you couldn't have possibly had a better time to really turn it up and get it done. And it's just kind of funny seeing how Jake Maier got it all going, because if we go into the other side of things, arguably one of the best players in the CFL this year has been Mr. Vernon Adams Jr., and man, he struggled. 17 for 31. Barely over 50% from Vernon Adams Jr. Very unusual for Vernon Adams Jr. Less than 200 yards, an average of 6.2, which is much lower than what he normally does. 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Again, normally he's in the positives there. Not overtly bad, just this is not like, it's funny, it's not even like this is a horrible QB performance. This is a horrible QB performance by Vernon Adams Jr. standards. For what we know he's capable of, this was just completely not close to the mark, and they needed that. As McInnes is able to go for 55 yards on 3 receptions, 1 touchdown for him. Berryhill III was able to grab himself a touchdown, and Eberhardt had an okay game, grabbing 45 yards on 3 receptions. But the problem is that the receivers were able to do a decent amount here. But if Vernon Adams Jr. is not able to quite connect with them, and then guys like McInnes, who've just been incredible this season, then it's just kind of fallen off a little bit. Stanback was able to grab 64 yards on 9 carries, so good game for him as an average of over 7. 7 per carry. But just the constant barrage of the offense here for Calgary. And then if we're looking at their top tacklers of the game, I'm going to do that a little bit. If we go into the Calgary side of things, Micah Awe leading with 6 tackles, followed by Dozier and States at 4 apiece. There would then be a sack for Vaughters and an interception for Sanders as well as Leader. And if I go onto the Lions side of things, top tacklers of the game for them were Tahima, I think is how you say it, Hladek, and Kent Jr. with 5 tackles apiece. Then 4 tackles for Lee, Lacombo, Rene, and Evans, all with 4 apiece. There would be 2 sacks for Tuhima. I don't know if that's how you say his name or if that's not. Two sacks for him. No interceptions and no sacks for anyone else. So overall, a good game by the offensive line here for Calgary, and it was definitely one of the contributing factors for Jake Maier being able to put up the numbers he was here. Needed a good game from that offensive line for Calgary, especially again when Jake Maier is the kind of the subject of scrutiny a little bit. Need that O line to come in together right when Jake Maier is going and roll with it, and he was able to do that. Is there anything that you got for this game, Rick? Because I've been rambling a lot.
Did you see that Alexander Hollins had one pass for 7 yards?
That's it, yeah.
I'm just looking at their numbers. Like, Hollins has only had 2 games over 100. Okay, you can add 3 because 97 is close enough to 100. But 3 games 100 or more out of out of 7. Then you have McInnes, who had 3 games over 100 or more. Like, yeah, McInnes has 780 yards receiving.
Yep.
But, I mean, your receivers cannot play like that if you want to win a game like that.
No. It was one of those things where it was just a combined effort of just that connection between Vernon Adams Jr. and his receiving core just being severed for this game. And if you're BC, just get that back right away. Don't dwell on this loss. Shake it off and move forward.
It's like the 2 teams swapped.
Yeah, no,
Adams was Maier and Maier was Adams.
Yeah, pretty much. That's pretty much actually 2 for 2 for. Because think about it: 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 192 yards, barely over 50%. Does that sound like Jake Maier or Vernon Adams Jr. on the average night? I'd say that sounds like Jake Maier.
Yes.
However, great game for Jake Maier. All the credit to him. Seriously, incredible performance by him. And I think that will wrap up our review here of Week 7 of CFL action. Later tonight, we will be uploading the preview to Week 8. So make sure you guys check that out. Make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe if you have not already. Check out some of our other content. If you want to see my Bomber depression, check out the Nolan Hockey Podcast, as you could see me just losing my mind and just coping after the loss to Saskatchewan over on the Nolan Hockey Podcast. Link to that account is in the description of this video. If you want to check out some of Rick's stuff on Ticats Talk Networks and Ticats content, I'm sure he has his full review of the game. I think we were going to be recording it today and probably uploading at a similar time as this.
It will be out later on tonight or tomorrow.
Okay, so it'll be out either before this video comes out or right around when it does. So you can check that out on Ticats Talk Network. Hamilton Tiger Cats getting their first win of the season, and now it is only Edmonton sitting at the bottom, winless. So peace, love, and positivity to all you at home, and see you guys next time.